Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Mike sent me a note about TurboTax. Ars Technica's got a great article written by John Brodkin. The Federal Trade Commission has ruled that Intuit broke the law and must stop advertising TurboTax as free. Intuit says they'll appeal. They slammed the FTC's predetermined decision. So this will litigate, and it might get ugly. The Federal Trade Commission's chief administrative law judge ruled that Intuit violated U.S. law with deceptive advertising and should be forced to stop promoting TurboTax as free unless all conditions imposed on the free offer are immediately and conspicuously displayed to consumers. So they're saying, look, if it's an ad in a newspaper, the ad's got to say all the things you got to do to make it free. If the ad's on TV, you got to disclose all the... And so, of course, that's where that box of fine print comes at the bottom of a TV ad. On the radio, it gets really tough. The initial decision by the administrative law judge was released today and is subject to an automatic review by the full commission. The FTC commissioners will likely rule against Intuit, which issued a statement indicating that it will take the matter to federal court. The order would be in effect for 20 years if it survives appeal. The question, of course, is will we be paying taxes in 20 years? Maybe they won't be a thing anymore. Better yet, you might be saying, Steve, administrative law judge, where does that fall into the grand scheme of how you're always talking about the Supreme Court and the courts of appeal? And there are administrative law judges in some departments of the government. The Social Security Administration, for instance, has courts you can appear in. And if you want to litigate something with them, that's usually where you go first. And most of the time, if you want to litigate something like this, you've got to go through the administrative process first and exhaust that. And then, if you want to, you can then appeal it by taking it to federal court and going that way. But you do have to do this first. So this happens where somebody goes in front of the administrative law judge and loses, and they can go over to the federal court system, and they can win there. So we don't know what's going to happen just yet. The company said Intuit will appeal this groundless and seemingly predetermined decision by the FTC to rule in its own favor, and is confident that when the matter ultimately returns to a neutral body, Intuit will prevail as it has previously in this matter. Intuit also said it already adheres to most of the advertising practices in the FTC's erroneous decision. There is no monetary penalty, and Intuit expects no significant impact to its business. So they're saying, look, there's an order that the judge said should be in effect for 20 years. We're already doing almost all of this. That's what they're saying. And so there's a few more things, but they say they argue with those, so they have the right to take that to court, and we'll see what happens. According to the judge's 242-page ruling, I only laugh because that's a lot of ruling. 242 pages. The evidence proves that Intuit engaged in deceptive advertising in violation of the FTC Act, and the judge cites all the sections, etc. Intuit advertised to consumers that they could file their taxes online for free using TurboTax, when in truth, for approximately 2/3 of taxpayers, the advertised claim was false. Now, I've never used TurboTax or any similar tax software. I actually got a guy who does my taxes for me. But I can tell you that when you see this on TV and they go, you can file your taxes for free using TurboTax, you usually do catch a disclaimer that says, this is for a rather simple filing, the most simple of filings. The minute you've got something complicated or, you're an S-Corp, you probably have to do something a little different than simply the TurboTax free software. But that's for the courts to straighten out, right? The order said Intuit must not represent that a good or service is free unless it actually offers a good or service for free to all consumers, or all the terms, conditions, and obligations upon which receipt and retention of the free good or service are contingent are set forth clearly and conspicuously at the outset of the offer, so as to leave no reasonable probability that the terms might be misunderstood. And you might be, Steve, the outset. They're not saying it's going to be the first thing they say, but they're saying, let's suppose someone just sees an ad of yours. By the time that ad's over, they need to understand that it's either free for everybody, or if it ain't free for everybody, who it is free for and why. That's got to be explained at the outset, okay? Moreover, if an Intuit good or service is not free for most taxpayers, that fact must be disclosed clearly and conspicuously at the outset. The order defines clearly and conspicuously in some detail. And so as you can imagine, if I were to tell you, I've got this widget, come into my store and it's free. And you come in and I go, well, it ain't free for you. Why? Oh, you don't qualify. Why? And I tell you some wacky reason. And you go, how would I know that? Well, we have these rules posted in the store. Okay, I saw an ad on TV, though. Were those conditions in the ad? Yeah, they were in this little tiny point. Do you have a high-def TV? Yes, I do. Okay, do you have a magnifying glass? Next time the ad comes on, freeze it for the split second it's on the screen. You can see the disclaimer and read it with a magnifying glass, and you can see that this disqualified you. And so then you ask, and I foolishly answer, does anybody ever win this? Oh, yeah, it's free for like 1 out of every 1,000 people. And you look at that and go, obviously, that hypothetical I just gave you would be a scam, okay? So I think there's no problem in saying that you number one need to disclose if it's actually free for everybody. If it's not free for everybody, what puts people in the non-free category? And roughly how many people actually do get it for free? And it can be a proportion. You can say half, 3/4, 1/3, whatever it might be. And that to me is fine too. As you may have noticed, if you play any of those games with the fast food places, I'm looking at you, McDonald's, and you are trying to figure out whether you can win, do they still do the Monopoly thing, or did that whole scam that they got involved in ruin that game? I don't know. But if you read the rules in there, it will actually say, here's how many of these prizes will be awarded, and your odds of winning are, and then they give you a number that looks like scientific notation. 1 in, and there's a big old number over here. And so you know that your odds of winning are what we call astronomical. So the ruling says in any communication that is solely visual or solely audible, the disclosure must be made through the same means through which the communication is presented. In any communication made through both visual and audible means, such as television, the disclosure must be presented simultaneously in both the visual and audible portions of the communication, even if the representation requiring the disclosure is made in only one means. The order then provides more specifics on how disclosures must be conveyed in various formats, talking about visual and audible, et cetera, et cetera. Similarly, strict requirements apply to online ads, product labels, and face-to-face communications. If you ever find yourself talking to TurboTax, face-to-face, take a picture and send it to me. At the same time it filed the administrative complaint last year, FTC also sued Intuit in U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. In the federal court, a judge denied the FTC's motion for a preliminary injunction in an order that said the issue could remain on hold while the administrative process unfolds. So this is the interesting thing. I said at the beginning that you must exhaust your administrative procedures before going into federal court. And so here the FTC apparently did both. They launched it in federal court and they launched it administratively. And the federal court has said, we're going to put this on hold till you're done over there, which is what they would have said to Intuit if they had brought an action to preemptively hit this. So it's interesting that they did that, but so there apparently is a pending case already in federal district court, Northern District of California. One wonders if they did that so that they could pick the venue should this matter go up after the administrative appeal and wind up over in the federal court. After the administrative ruling over in the federal court system. The ruling said that Intuit had removed several of the most plausible deceptive advertisements. That is 3 videos that repeated the word free a dozen or more times over 30 seconds before a very brief disclaimer. However, if Intuit resumes its full advertising campaign or the facts on the ground change significantly, the FTC may return to this court and request relief, the judge wrote. Meanwhile, as you might guess, in a separate case involving all 50 states and D.C., Intuit, in May of last year, agreed to pay $141 million in restitution to nearly 4.4 million consumers who started using TurboTax's free edition in tax years 2016, 17, and 18, and were told that they had to pay to file, even though they were eligible to file for free using the IRS free file program offered through TurboTax. New York Attorney General, that's what their office said at the time, under that settlement, Intuit was required to stop its free ad campaign. That's the word free 3 times in a row. Free. So what's happened here is Intuit advertises TurboTax filing for free. And as you now guess, some of the people who thought, oh, I'll do my taxes that way, went in and discovered that, oh, your taxes and you aren't free. That applies to other people with simpler returns or whatever it might be. So you want to continue using this, it's going to cost you some money. Some people go, okay, I'm already here, I'm halfway done, fine, I'll pay the money. And the Federal Trade Commission is saying that because it was advertised as free in such a way as to not put the average consumer on notice of what would cause to not be free, that's a violation of the Federal Trade Commission's rules. And here we are. So I can tell you that the Michigan Consumer Protection Act, which was gutted by Michigan's Supreme Court, at one point in time had a very similar subsection in it that said that it was unlawful for a merchant to advertise something as free if in fact it was not free. And there was a time, going back to the wild years before the Federal Trade Commission existed or the Consumer Protection Act existed, where businesses would advertise things as free. And then they'd bury in the fine print someplace like not really free, but, it's still going to cost you. Or, well, it's free, but you got to buy this. Or it's free, but you got to pay this fee. And it became one of those things that people just got sick of. And so you hear about this a lot in the older days than you do now. But when I see something on TV that is free and it appears to be an attempt to get me to do business with a company, I, as a consumer protection attorney, immediately assume, okay, it's not free. I wonder what the catch is. And one of the complaints, apparently, is that nowadays you can file your taxes online for free with the IRS. You just have to know how to fill out all the various forms. And so what TurboTax does, they say, well, come to our site. We got the forms there. We'll show you how to fill them out, help you fill them out, which is a good service. It sounds like a great idea. The question is that process going to be free when you get to the end, or are they going to say, well, because yours required extra special attention, it's not going to be free? So I've not got a problem with the Federal Trade Commission telling them to clarify the issue, okay? And I'd love to see how many people actually got it for free, because that would be a telling number. If they said, hey, look, more than half the people who use our system get it for free, I'd go, okay, that's a majority of the people. Hey, so I like to think the majority wins. That's not bad. I'd like to see that number, but I'd also like to see a disclosure that says, after they say free, they say, well, for this form but not that form, or for the typical individual filer but not the other types of filers out there. And that would make sense. That makes sense. So I'm big on disclosure. And I've mentioned that before. So Mike, thanks for sending it. John Brodkin wrote a great piece on this from Ars Technica. FTC judge rules that Intuit broke the law and must stop advertising TurboTax as free. And as you can guess, Intuit plans to appeal and strongly disagrees with the ruling. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work.